Good afternoon, wisdom listeners. My name is Stacy Brioka. I am known as the technology therapist and squirrel wrangler, and I'm getting back on the wagon today. Because I fell off the wagon. I fell right off, probably hit my butt, and it hurt a little, and now I'm getting back up on the wagon. Now, that wagon is not the drinking wagon, the not drinking wagon, those things. Although it could be. It's definitely not that. It is actually getting back um on the wagon of being online. And being on my wisdom show. I
Oh,
have
hey, oh, wow, I didn't even know you accepted me until just now. I looked down.
I sure did. So yeah, today is if not now Wednesday. And I fell off the wagon last week when Wisdom did not let me download my show on Friday. I'm not sure. I'm sure it was a glitch. As the technology therapist, I understand glitches happen, and I'm happy to keep going with them. Sorry about that. If you got cut off, I didn't mean for that. But glitches happen, right? Things happen, and I think but I think it knocked me off the wagon of doing live Monday through Friday, because then Monday came around and I'm like, oh, I need to get my Mindset Monday doing. I need to get my Mindset Monday done. And six other things got in the way, and I did not hit the mic and make myself go on and do Mindset Monday. I'm like, okay, no big deal. I did Friday. It didn't upload or download. Thusly, I couldn't put it on my podcast. It was golden information that whoever was there got to hear, and whoever wasn't there didn't get to hear. Then Monday came, fell completely off the wagon myself. Didn't do a show on Monday. Didn't do one yesterday. But then today I remembered I just got off of a summit, and they asked me for my final words, which were give yourself grace. So I had to remember to give myself grace for having fallen off the wagon. So I wanted to lay that context actually before I should have waited and let somebody in. After I laid the context of what I mean by getting back on the wagon is you've got a habit that you're trying to make, and you're partway through it. I was 16 episodes in, and I'd recorded 16 of the days in a row that I wanted, and then I fell off. And it might have been 17 or 18. I don't know. I don't know the number because I'm giving myself grace. I'm not worrying about the number, and I'm getting back on the wagon today. So the topic is if not now Wednesday, which has to do kind of with procrastination, but also with, if you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do whatever that thing is you want to do? So I noticed I did have someone who from the Nothings podcast with rants and baseless opinions. I would love to have you back on stage and see what you say about, uh, being knocked off the wagon, getting back on the wagon. How have you gotten yourself back up on the wagon before when you've fallen off? And or what story do you have around falling off of a wagon and getting back on? So sorry that I meant to lay the groundwork of what kind of the topic meant to me anyway. Before we got going, and now I want to hear definitely what the topic means to you guys. Um, if not now Wednesday, and getting back on the wagon, what does that mean? So, I believe the username was Whitey. Interesting username. Um, it reminds me of thinking of like baseball players named like Whitey Herzog. I remember was a baseball player when I was a kid. And that's may not have anything to do with the name. That was just what I thought of. or anyone else in the audience who wants to jump up and talk about what do you do with yourself or what do you do for yourself when you fall off of a habit that you're committed to, and how do you do that in such a way where you're still committed to yourself but you give yourself grace, or maybe you don't, maybe you beat yourself up, and what does that feel like, what does it look like, what happens when you do that. Gonna peek and see who the people are. There's 6 people in the audience I love here. Seeing Eugene, Shirley, Kristen, Whitey from Nothing's podcast, Laura Franson, who I do know who that is, and King Buchanan. Um, would love to open. Now we have another person join, Christopher. Who would like, if somebody wants to come up and speak on the topic of what happens when you fall off when you're working on building a habit? What do you do, and how do you get back up on the wagon or on the horse? Or I guess if you're dancing on tables, how do you get back up dancing on the table? How do you get back up when you've fallen? Or when you, whatever your definition of fallen is, because maybe it's not fallen at all. Maybe it's, oh well, I took a meaningful break. I just needed that break and I took it. How do you frame your habit making and habit breaking, and the process, or what's a habit that you are working on and want to talk about, because if you guys don't come up and let me know what you're thinking of, I'm gonna go on a rant myself, I guess, of some habits. But I would certainly love to have an interactive and iterative, if you will, discussion on the habits, um, as I get back on the wagon myself and get in wisdom and remember to do my daily shows, because that's what I promised myself I would do. Um, and does my counter start again today? Yeah, not necessarily. It just is what it is. There's Miss Helen Levine of the Time Travel Healing. She was a special guest on one of my shows before, and I absolutely loved it. And here she comes again. Hey, lady, how are you today? And if not now, Wednesday for you.
Hi, Stacy. How are you? So good to see you here again.
I'm not doing bad. I've got one habit that I fell off my wagon about, but I've got another habit that
Uh-oh.
I'm working on at the same time. So maybe that's the problem. It's not a problem, actually. I'm not seeing
Oh
it as a
boy.
problem. Yeah. So,
Sorry, I sound a little funny. I lost my voice. It's been a few days. It's starting to come back.
oh,
But
that'll knock you off, sure enough.
no, I've been feeling fine. It's just funny, and I know why. It was some definite emotional related stuff that I just was holding on to and lost my voice. So
Aha.
I cleared it. It's coming back little by little. At least I had that awareness of why it happened. So it's okay. We learn and grow through these things.
It's so vital to if you're lucky enough to find out the why on whatever it is, so that you can clear it.
Well, I've always been the type to seek the why. Like, I don't just accept the status quo. I don't just never reach for the easy solution since I was a little girl, but
I was going to say, were you the 2-year-old that was saying, "But why, mommy? But why?
probably.
But why?
I'm
But
sure.
why?" Yeah.
I would imagine. Yeah, everything has to make sense. I don't accept it until I understand it. That's basically how I roll.
Uh huh. Uh huh. Yeah. I relate to that more than I probably care to admit. And, well, okay. So here's one about that. A squirrel. Why do we beat that out of our children? Why do we get them to stop asking why? Why do we make them stop asking why?
Well, I don't, but yes, as a society, we definitely tend to do
As a
that.
society.
Yeah, I notice it. It's we're so conditioned in all this programming to beat it out of our children because we were taught that way, and just stay um, what's the word? Like, don't stick your, how do they say it? I can't think right now. Um,
Let's staying
you know,
within the status quo.
yeah, like
Don't.
kind of don't ask too many questions. You don't need to understand why. They like oftentimes parents say, because I told you so, right? So a
Oh my
child wants to
gosh.
understand, and the parent says, well, this is what I said, and this is what you're going to do. And the child tends to say, but why, mommy? Why, daddy? And the parents are like, because I told you so, because I said so. But why? Because I'm the grown up and I know better. Well, for me, my kids actually have been some of my best teachers. When they were little, I
Mm-hmm.
actually had my kids say it in that exact way. Mommy, but you don't listen. I'm trying to teach you something. I remember the first time I heard that, I was like,
Oh,
whoa. I was like, what if they are? And I paused. Like the ego for a moment really wanted to go into that program and say, what do you mean? Who the heck do you think you are? Right. But I didn't. I
the
paused.
kids gave you gold.
Yeah. And I was like, wait a second. I remember sitting there in my room at night, pondering on that and thinking, they really are teaching me something, a lot, a whole lot about myself, about parenting, about children. It's profound. I actually often, when I work with families, I often teach, particularly moms, because I think that's where a lot of it stems from. Moms are the ones that sort of um, can guide the family structure more so. A lot of dads will sort of follow, not in every family, of course, but a lot of
Sure.
times. And, a lot of moms like that would come to me and say, well, how do I change my child? They're acting out, they're being such a brat, blah, blah, blah. And then I laugh. It's funny to me because it's never that child really. It's always the parent. And then when I work through the parent, the mom usually, when the transformation happens in the child, usually the mom's like, oh my God, what happened? Like she's a different kid all of a sudden, or he's, acting better. What is it? How did they change? And I'm like, you changed. And they're just your mirror. They're responding to your new vibration, to the way that you are now acting, to the words that you're speaking. So, it's very interesting when we change ourselves, how the universe responds, including our children,
Uh-huh.
of course. Yeah.
And it's like the ripple effect. When you throw a pebble in a pond, something is
Exactly.
going to happen.
Yeah,
The rest of the
exactly.
pond is going to have an impact of your change, of your
Yeah,
behavior.
for sure.
Uh,
And we just, if we become more aware of that, just how much we are affecting our reality, including our relationships around, whether it's children, spouses, friends, coworkers, bosses, anyone. It is definitely a ripple effect. I actually was writing a chapter on that in my book last night. With that exact word. I think that I forget the name I wrote for the chapter, but it had something with a ripple effect in it.
oh wow.
Yeah. So
Well, you know,
clearly
we
there's
are all
something
connected.
going on. Sorry.
We are all connected
You
in so
know
many
it.
ways. Uh, so how do you resonate with like the initial description of the topic today? I said is
Oh my
my
God, this is
obviously
so
the what
weird.
now. It's not, if not now, Wednesday, but it's the I've fallen off the wagon and I'm getting back up.
So it's so funny that you literally just said that as my brain was like, well, let me ask her, what is this topic? To get back to your topic and what I was just about to ask you that, and you said it out loud. That's so freaky, but
I'm
not
telling
at the
you,
same time. I love it. When there's an alignment, it's pretty great, right?
it's it like it. Well, it make the hair on my arms is kind of standing up actually.
Yeah. I wanted to
um,
actually ask you what made you come up with that topic.
well, so I have daily topics that I promised myself 3.5 weeks ago that I'd go live every day, Monday through Friday, with those 5 topics. And then
And
I'd
I
have a
haven't seen you.
subtopic
I
under it.
actually wanted to come back and chat with you again. So
Yeah.
I was glad that I saw you pop up.
Oh, yeah. So here's what happened. I was going along great. I've got like 16 episodes in my podcast. And Friday, I did Find Your Formula Friday. And the recording didn't download out of wisdom. Now, as the technology therapist and geek girl, I understand that tech happens, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to just roll with what I got here because that if you were there Friday, you got the message, and if you weren't, you didn't, and I can't repeat it exactly the same way I did that day ever again. And so that's just gonna be what it is, right? Monday comes along, and I was needed to do Mindset Monday, and I kept. I think kept putting it off. But what really happened is I had myself get in my own way of whether I was going to do Mindset Monday, and all of a sudden it was nighttime, and I'm going, you didn't get online, you didn't go on the mic today, and you're going to blame it on the software from Friday, and it's not the software's fault, it's that you're not doing it, and whatever the reason is, you're not doing it. Then yesterday was supposed to be Technology Tuesday. Same thing happened. Went to bed last night, didn't get Technology Tuesday recorded. Well, today I was on a summit less than an hour ago, and they asked me what my closing thought was. And I said, well, give yourself grace, because one of the most important parts of the formula is give yourself grace. And then I had to sit here and think about that myself. Teacher, teach thyself, healer, heal thyself kind of thing. I need to give myself grace that I didn't do Monday or Tuesday this week when I promised myself I'd do every day, and that's just what happened. And all I have is now and moving forward. And I needed to go on and do, if not now, Whens'day, which is the topic of Whens'day. And I'm like, well, what a perfect topic, getting back on the wagon, because that's what I've done, is fallen off the wagon. I'm getting back on. So that's kind of the story of how the topic handled. And I was wanting other people to go, okay, what do you do when you fall off of a wagon? You've promised yourself something and somehow something happens. What do you do? And what's your journey look like that way?
That's so interesting. I love that. And I love how you were led to it. You know, the topic, I guess, had to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
in order for that to happen, you needed to give yourself grace with the Monday and Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's good to know that glitches like that happen, because for me, I've only been, I think, twice now on this app, especially since I haven't really been able to talk for about a week.
Right.
That didn't help. But for me, I used to beat myself up a lot, feeling like I failed, years ago. Somehow, like all this inner talk was probably not that pretty. I don't recall exactly, but I can imagine it was relatively abusive. Not the kind of talk I would ever allow anyone else to speak towards myself, or to speak to others that way. But now I'm
Mm-hmm.
much more kind of like what you just described. I give myself a lot more grace and permission to just be okay with whatever. I tend to now go more with the flow rather than struggle. Like if I don't feel well, I used to, oh no, I need to push through this and I'm going to do this, but now I'm like, well, if I don't feel well, I'm not really going to be that productive. So I'd rather take that time to nurture and bring myself back to feeling my best, so that when I do, hopefully the next day or however long it takes, then I will be more productive. I'm not saying like completely just do nothing, but I don't feel that pressure anymore, that sort of self-imposed, self-induced pressure that we so often put on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I just I kind of live in a place of more of allowing and accepting that if something happened where I need to take a break, then perhaps that's what my higher self is requiring right now of me. And I used to not really even give myself the break, but I realized I learned it the hard way many times, not just with myself, but through observing many people experiencing this, is that when we continue to not listen, like some signs where, the body may be telling us to take a break, or we get some nudging internally that, oh, maybe it's time to slow down, take it easy. If we don't listen to those whispers, we will get screams eventually, and it'll get loud until we really listen. So I just kind of,
It's so true.
Yeah. So I choose
And I
to
think
listen
even
to
as
the whispers whenever it's possible.
the older we get, and it's really interesting because we're almost looking at two phases of life we've talked about. You and I've just now talked about the phase of being older and listening to your body or not, and the phase of being younger and asking why. And at first glance, those two don't seem to be related, but I'm wondering maybe they are. If we're older and our body says, "Oh, no, you're not," and we say, "But why? I'm going to push through it anyway." Or do we say, "But why?" and go, "Because you need the rest this time, silly, and just take it because that's what your higher self needs."
Yeah, I think the why is vital, really, to connect to that at any age. It's not about the age, but
Right.
rather the connection to yourself is always key for anything. Because it's not just about physical health. It could be a decision about something in life. It's another thing that I also learned, that when we sometimes like want something so bad and we really push through it and we're like working extra hard, but it's not happening and it's not happening. And there's all these obstacles and something is off, but we keep on, wanting it. And so we keep on sort of fighting. Whenever we're in that space, that's usually, even if we end up getting it, not going to be something that we would enjoy. And
Oh
that
my
really would
gosh.
work with anything in life, whether you're, struggling in fighting for a job or for a relationship or for a new house or whatever it is. If it takes that much fight for it, most likely, if it's unattainable and we still continue to push through until we really get it, we may not be happy with that in the end. I've seen that many times.
I do. I think that's a repetitive pattern that we go through. And it's just so interesting how we fight our own self.
Yeah.
It,
Isn't
it,
that
it
sad?
it is because of everybody to, well, I mean, frankly, we should not feel the need to fight anywhere, I don't think, but to fight your own self. So like you're putting the pressure on yourself, you're putting the pain on yourself, you're it's masochistic to be quite honest, but yet we're socialized to do it again, which means we actually can create habits to not do it, I think.
You're right.
What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, we can. The question is, are we willing? Right? So a lot of people
Mhm.
don't really want to create any change for various reasons. Change is uncomfortable.
Oh
Familiar
yeah.
patterns are much more comfortable, no matter how sort of uncomfortable the pattern itself may be. The fact that it's more familiar keeps people stuck in that pattern because it feels more comfortable, as odd as it is, to be in the familiar discomfort rather than to allow yourself to experiencing something new. That fear of change, it really, I think, holds a lot of people back from
Oh
stepping
yeah.
into that.
Well, and I think I would imagine you've probably seen this as well as the description of when people are talking about individuals or people who live in abusive situations, in trauma, in even in war. But I'm thinking, familial abuse, interpersonal violence, family abuse, domestic violence, sexual abuse, war, anything that is uncomfortable, or even let's go back this more a little more simple, but still as traumatic is working in toxic environments. We'll stay inside working in a toxic environment as opposed to finding a different um, way to support ourselves simply because of the fear of change.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, work and relationships are the two scenarios where I see that the most, of course, where people literally will tell me, Yeah, but I don't know. What if the next one is going to be even worse? And coming from that place of that much of the fear and the sort of lack based, fear based on lack mentality, that is trauma. That is childhood trauma. There's layers of generational trauma, which I'm sure you're probably familiar
That,
with.
well, yeah, we talked about that the first time
Yeah,
you were
like
on
from
the,
your
and
lineages,
and
exactly.
if you guys are listening to the podcast, and if you're on Wisdom, look back. On Wisdom, it may not show which show Helen was on, but if you look on my podcast, her contact information's in the show notes.
Oh, wow.
From
I gotta look at your podcast. I don't, can you send it to me? I'll have to find it somehow.
yeah,
I want to
actually,
learn
if
more about
it's
that.
technology therapist, and you'll find the podcast. And if you look up technology therapist and your name, the particular episode should come up.
Oh my goodness. Okay, good to know. Thank you.
I
I
gave
sound so silly with this voice. I don't recognize myself. Um, but yeah, we talked about this. And
just trauma.
absolutely, it's so crazy sometimes to hear, like, as you know, as an outside voice, and I've been there myself years ago, so I get it. But still, to hear someone actually say it, until I really have them sometimes repeat it out loud, so that they really bring it to the conscious level of awareness that they are actually choosing to remain stuck in a very unhappy situation or environment or whatever. And the thing is, it's okay as long as you realize that you are actually choosing it. Because a lot of people
Right.
feel like a victim in that circumstance, right? But the truth is, if they're choosing it, which we all choose consciously or unconsciously, when we
Yeah.
can choose consciously, then we feel less of a victim because that comes from a much more empowered way of thinking and feeling when you make a decision to stay somewhere. Then you can
Well, I
even
think
shift, right?
yeah, and I think in situations of trauma and where someone else is causing you pain, whatever that is, I think it's both the awareness and the awareness that something else is possible. So I think hope is important in that one as well, because if you feel like there's not hope, even if you're aware of it, if you feel like there's not hope, then you may still feel stuck. Like you have a choice, but you don't realize that what the other choices are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Well, that's the trauma pattern speaking in itself,
Mhm.
when we actually believe that there may not be something better. That stems from a lot of deep-rooted childhood or generational stuff around being undeserving or unworthy of something good in life, or, this lack that it's not, it may be there for someone else, but not for me, not for our family, that kind of
Mhm.
belief, right?
And
Um,
actually, just for the sake of our audience, because they probably I suspect, you and I understand various descriptions of intergenerational trauma and multi-generational trauma, but go ahead, and if you don't mind giving your definition of that, especially since it's your wheelhouse and space very specifically.
Thank you. I don't know if I would call it a definition, but to me, it's really what we carry, really through our cellular memory. It's almost like it's in our DNA. It's just that science hasn't really figured out a way to test for it, but we carry it through our lineages, the trauma of our ancestors, just like we carry our genetic DNA. We also carry a lot of the belief systems, and we carry a lot of the traumas that our grandparents or great grandparents, sometimes it could be many, many generations deep, that continues to really spread to the future generations until someone at some point becomes sort of more conscious of it and decides to break that cycle or to clear that energy. Because everything in life is energy, as you and I know. I don't know if your
Mm-hmm.
audience speaks energy. It's not for everyone. But at least for me, I feel it. I see it. I don't remember if I shared this with you, how that awoke in me. Did I,
Mm.
did I
I don't
tell you
believe
that?
so. I'd love to know. Yes.
Oh, well, it was a little definitely traumatic. It caused me some level of
Mm.
PTSD for about 2 months that I had to keep on clearing. It was heavy, but from that, awoke this understanding, because I used to only work with more of our childhood stuff and like the stuff that we acquire through life, all this emotional baggage and stuck energy that we acquire through our own lives. And sometimes like from parents or in the womb. But generational, I didn't really connect to as much. But I was having a medical procedure, which left me really traumatized, because in the middle of it, the procedure itself was so uncomfortable and painful and damaging emotionally and physically. And in the middle of it, I literally had this almost like an out of body experience where I was in the Holocaust being tortured.
Oh
And
my
it was so
God.
powerful and profound. And I come from my grandparents were survival of the Holocaust, and I come from that lineage of Holocaust survivors.
Mm-hmm.
And I just could not believe that experience. It was so powerful and literally traumatic, but at the same time, it was the awakening for me. It took me a while to recognize that. But as I continued to work with a number of clients, and then as I sat down to do some more clearings for myself, I suddenly at that point started to connect more to generational stuff. And I was like, oh, well, here we go. Here's another painful lesson life taught me, is usually through something that caused me strong discomfort, something that was painful enough, is how I grew and learned from it in my life. That's just been the pattern. And I always say, God,
Oh,
like I want to learn with no pain. I'm ready to just accept easy lessons at this point. I don't want any painful lessons anymore. There have been many, but that's how it kind of came about. And so I started to really realize that we all carry these lineages and these patterns from our ancestors, and we not only ourselves but collectively. If you take certain
mhm.
groups of people that experience trauma, like for example Holocaust survivors or slavery or anything of that nature, right, where it was a large group of people that had that similar experience, they
Mhm.
carry that trauma collectively as well.
Yeah. And
So
that speaks so much to the interconnected energies, because
yeah,
we are all connected, and we are connected both with the past doesn't exist per se, and the future doesn't exist per se. The only thing we have is right now, but in energetic, it all exists and is all connected.
absolutely,
So like
yeah.
it isn't at the same time. And oh my gosh, I wondered, when we first spoke, what I wondered if there was a story behind it, and I anticipated that there likely was, and that it was a painful one. So,
Interesting.
as someone else who has connected ancestrally because of not only historical trauma, but I'm also going to say some of the positive parts of the historical connection of that. Um,
Of course,
you
we
know,
develop not
you
just
were,
negative.
yeah, you were chosen as the one to help clear that for whatever reason. And that just speaks to me as to how powerful of a human being you are.
Oh my God, you gave
You
me
had to
chills.
have been a powerful human being for your ancestors to choose you to clear that for the collective, for the whole, for the generations coming forward, whatever it is.
Oh my
You know,
God, you're making the hair stand up on my head right now,
I
literally.
and Helen, I really do not know I mean, I just anymore, I just am who I am, and I speak whatever comes out of my mouth. Sometimes that gets me in trouble, but anyway, that's a whole different
Same, I
story.
get it.
But yeah, because like another way that I know I'm connected is when, I don't know if anybody else has ever had the experience of dreaming in another language, and maybe a
Oh,
language that you
yes.
might not know.
I have had that for sure multiple times in my life. It is
Yeah,
freaky,
it
right?
is very freaky. Or dreaming, not really, um the what's the word I'm thinking of? Not like repetitive dreams, but dreams that have the same architecture and quote unquote world in them, and you've been to that world before, kind of like a deja vu moment. and you wake up and you know that that whole world is constructed somehow, but it is not where you're living right this moment.
And
It's
yet
not
it
the
looks
house you're in
familiar,
right
right?
now. And it's just, there's some freaky things when you start tapping into your energies and intuitions and ancestors.
Yeah.
But if you accept them as they are and listen to what it is that you're supposed to be doing with it, for it, or about it, it becomes really powerful.
You're so right. And you know, for me, it took me many years and a number of healers over those years in my youth that told me that this is what I'm meant to do, is that I'm going to be a healer, and that my own fear and some past life stuff is holding me back. And I used to laugh at them. This was nowhere in the radar at all. I did
Yeah.
not see it coming whatsoever. But at some point, life just kept pushing. And like I said, I wasn't listening to the whispers, and they kept getting louder and louder, and it would smack me hard several times
Uh-huh.
until I finally didn't have much choice. Yeah.
And but then also then we're also back to the being afraid of it potentially, because it was some freaky stuff, but also accepting it as your purpose and being able to move forward with it, because also then once you understood what you were gifting back to the universe, to your ancestors, and to the future.
Yeah, but it was hard. It was,
Oh yeah, oh yeah, doesn't take the hard
for
part
you
out of it by
probably
any means.
too, right?
In
I
different, yeah, I've got some stories as well, and I mean we could do a whole series just on these. And um I suspect, I know you and I are not the only ones with those stories.
yeah, of
um
course.
and wow, so I see that the clock, I have a love-hate relationship with this clock thing,
Well, I'm
of
gonna hop
it's
off
gonna,
anyway. You might
right,
have
but it's,
other
I have
interesting.
really appreciated you being
Yes.
on, and I've kind of gone my time period in the show that I wanted. I wanted to be able to have some kind of substantive discussion about the getting back on the wagon, and oh my god, you've given me way more than I anticipated, and I am so blessed to have had you now on here twice. I am going to tag you again and
Awesome. Please
let
do. I
people
don't even
know.
know how to tag someone. I would tag you if I knew
Well,
how to tag you.
the tagging, actually, what I'm meaning is if you're listening to this on replay on my podcast, at Technology Therapist is the name of the podcast, you will hear the previous episodes that got downloaded last Friday. You won't hear because it didn't get downloaded, and Monday and Tuesday you won't hear because, well, I was off the wagon. So I will, I'm getting back on the wagon. Tomorrow is Take Time Thursday. And then Friday again will be Find Your Formula Friday. And I've got Helen coming back up to give us some more wisdom on wisdom. If you're listening on the replay, this was recorded on the Wisdom app, which is currently, I believe, still iOS only, but is a great place to meet other people. I would not have been able to be connected with Miss Helen without it. So I'm so glad.
Well, I just wanted to come back up for just a moment to thank you,
Mhm.
Stacy, because I really, really enjoyed our conversation again. And I'm so blessed to be a part of this with you. So I just want to thank you for inviting me up and being a part of your conversation. And I'll definitely join you again in the future if I see you pop up here. So thank you so much again.
And same to you, Helen. If I as I because I followed you and have notifications. I also followed you guys. Click on Helen's profile and go follow her on Instagram. She's got some great stuff on Instagram, and I actually looked up your webpage and was able to connect over there. I had my podcast try to send you probably a notification when the podcast went live, but if I didn't have the right email address, it might have gone to spam. So if
Hmm.
you happen to be able to connect with me on somewhere, one of my social medias, and send me an email address, I will have it send you a notification when this goes live into my podcast.
Oh, that would
Uh,
be
so
great.
that you
Thank
know.
you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna go cook some soup to help improve
Oh,
my voice and heal everyone else in the house.
yeah. I hope you feel better. I hope your voice comes back to where it needs to be soon. I hope that whatever reason it's been gone has been, it's served its purpose.
It made
And
my husband very happy. 3 days of no talking.
oh, I could hear that story out of mine too. I'm telling you. Yeah, we're gonna have to. That'll have to be a different. I'm not sure which day that would be. Maybe Mindset Monday.
Awesome. Just send me a ping me, an invite or whatever, and I'll definitely
Sounds
join.
good.
Thank you
I
so
have
much. I'll talk
loved
to you
having you
soon.
here. Thanks, Helen.
Same. Take care. Bye, Stacy.
Bye bye. So, for everybody else, thank you so much for the 58 people in the chat or in the audience. Mick, Donovan, Frank, Antonio, Molly, Joshua, Vernita, Clint, Roman, Deidre, Alexandra, Shane, Dr. Rao, Joe, Kristen, Sue Zimmerman. Oh, Sue Zimmerman was the first person I got to talk to on Wisdom. She was super fun. Alyssa, Eugene, Miss Marilee, Tammy, Michael, Miriam, Rachel, Yusuf, Proverbs, Christopher, Robert Ashley Wisdom Speaks. Ooh, that's an interesting username. Now I lost my space again. Mary, Jennifer, Dale, Lourdes, Bruce, Catherine, Ram, Samam, Ahmad, Jacqueline, Forget Me Not, Teresa, Gina, Daryl, Zara, Miriam, Kimberly, Bupinder, Granny Wowzers, Tara, Dan, Brent, Tim, Helen, again, thank you, Spiritual Goddess, Shirley, Whitey, Laura, and King Buchanan. Thank you guys all for being here. And Andy and Sandra, you guys showed up as I was speaking that. My name is Stacy Brioka. I am affectionately known as the technology therapist and squirrel wrangler and the founder of the Find Your Formula coaching program. Entrepreneurs and business leaders hire me to help them find and balance their life formula so that they can get more done and be able to spend time doing more of what they love. Bottom line, without the right formula, you cannot sustain the things you love. So if you want to find out more about that or about me, please download my app on the App Store. It is called Technology Therapist. The podcast is also by the same name, Technology Therapist. And message me and let me know what you'd like to hear on my wisdom shows / podcasts. And get a hold of me if you want to connect, if you want to find out more about the programs that I offer. And just, I'll end again today with have grace with yourself. Have grace with yourself. Have a great Wednesday, folks.